Political soul food. We're here Wednesday night, March 27, 2019, trying to make our society better one conversation at a time. I wish we can do it more than that, but unfortunately, we're human beings and we have to function within our natures and the nature of our existence. However, if we all join in on this great conversation, we might be able to expedite matters. So, tonight's topic is what can the Naturalization Act of 1790 teach us about MAGA and the Republican Party today? That's what we're going to get into. I hope you're ready for that because we're about to get down. So, let me put this intro in so people can chime in. My boy, Soul Brother Jerome here on IG. What's good? Holla at you. Alrighty, so sit tight. We're gonna let everybody know that we're here, and we're gonna jump right in on today's topic. What can the Naturalization Act of 1790 teach us about MAGA and the Republican Party today? Be right back after this quick intro. All right, I think that I know beyond thinking that this is an important topic here. It's going to be brief tonight. We're starting a little later, but it's important for us. I want to holler at Dr. Marshall, Dr. Automaye in the house. What's good? Send my waves. What's good? So this topic, the Naturalization Act of 1790, explaining MAGA and the Republican Party today, is very important. I mean, while I try to keep up with current events, I definitely want to focus on the foundation of our present day issues. The issues that we're dealing with did not arise out of nowhere. There's no hocus pocus. And again, I try to stress the need to not be taken by surprise when we see or experience certain things in politics, because that is a distraction and it could unnecessarily discourage you and make you think that nothing could change, because without the proper context, I mean, it'll appear to be true. And, I got into conversations in the past with people who actually start their political analysis from Bill Clinton days. So you got Bill Clinton, you got George Bush, you got Barack Obama, then you got our homeboy 45. And while that kind of analysis can be fruitful to a certain degree, it's a flawed analysis when one tries to draw conclusions about or larger conclusions about American society that need to be understood in the context of a longer timeline. And for my patrons, I did a reflection on political time, explaining the significance of understanding political time and how we could better experience political time and understand its nature and how to function in it as American citizens. I might be able to touch on a little bit of that here tonight, but not much. I do want to focus. I think we'll be practicing, viewing American history and looking at historical time and changes as a reference point. So in a way, this conversation will perform what I'm suggesting, recommending that all of you do, view issues in a historical context. So that way, when we see political issues pop up, they'll be situated in a field of other trends and tugs of wars down through the years. So let's get to this. So MAGA. I mean, all right. On the surface, I know we all understand what that is about. And then for most people who come here and politic with me, we probably share a lot of common ground politics. You're probably somewhere on the left. You're probably very concerned about racial inequality and economic inequality. I'm sure you're very concerned about the state of education. So I know we share a lot. And for that reason, I know that we have a common view of MAGA, what Make America Great Again says in between those letters. And we kind of have a good understanding of the political parties, all right? We understand at this point what each party is, where each party is situated in terms of its commitment to certain ideals and principles and formations of American identity. So we don't have to talk too much about that right now, at least. So let's go in a little deeper to this issue that I want to bring up. And it's like a little history kind of chat we're having. So the Naturalization Act of 1790, I feel, is very important to just, know or recall for those of you who have already experienced it. And what I want to do is read a portion of it first, perhaps, and then, we'll see if we arrive at a common understanding. And I would be curious to see how this helps you interpret what is going on now, and see if we agree or not, or perhaps you can, offer some details and some perspectives that I might not have right now, or might not be considering right now. But let me read from the beginning. I have a facsimile of it, and I'm going to let you know I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm going to stop where I think the critical passage, the relevant passage for today's discussion ends. All right, so I'm going to do that. Let me holler at my boy, Kevin Brown, up in the house. All right, so let me just read this Naturalization Act of 1790. And off the back, we're talking about who can become an American citizen. Who gets to be an American citizen? This act, I should give a little context, is passed by the first American Congress. All right, keep this in mind. The Constitution was ratified in 1789. 1789. It's like moving into a brand new house or neighborhood, situating something. It's like we're open for business. We got the buildings built and we're open for business. Everybody come in, move into the town. Here is the United States of America. Here's our governing body. Here is one of the first things they sign and pass concerning who gets to be an American citizen. All right? So let's look at this vision of America, this early vision of America. Enact a bill to establish, this version looks like an edited version, an act to establish a uniform rule of naturalization, and the part that was scratched out, and to enable aliens to hold lands under certain restrictions. Section 1. Be it enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States of America and Congress assembled, that any alien, and parentheses, other than an alien enemy, being a free white person who shall have resided within the limits and under the jurisdiction of the United States for the term of 2 years, may be admitted to become a citizen thereof, on application to any common law court of record in any one of the states wherein he shall have resided for the term of 1 year at least, and making proof to the satisfaction of such court that he is a person of a good character, and taking the oath of affirmation prescribed by law to support the Constitution of the United States, which oath or affirmation such court shall administer. And let me stop there. Let me read the key part again. Be it enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States of America in Congress assembled, that any alien, being a free white person, shall have who shall have resided within the limits and under the jurisdiction of the United States for the term of 2 years, may be admitted to become a citizen thereof. And I read a few more lines. Did you hear that, my friends? So, initially, of course, we understand this. For many Americans, the vision of America was supposed to be a white city on a hill for white people. Okay? This was echoed by Andrew Johnson much later, that this government is going to be a government of white people. It's going to be a country of white people, of white men. Okay? So from the first presidency all the way up to the 17th presidency, this has been part of the consciousness of the American mind. The whole idea that to be an American, the first criteria is race, is to be white. And for many of us, like, oh yeah. But I want us to see this in the law. Okay, obviously we see it enacted, but when we go to change policy, we have to understand what we're working and pulling against. And this is pretty much was unclear, especially for me. It was made unclear. It was clear that it was unclear to many people, not understanding what Barack Obama was up against, why it was historic, why it was a defiance and a revolution in and of itself. And when we miss that, we miss the point of it all and the source of our motivation, because our motivation should have come from recognizing the enormous achievement that goes beyond our votes at that time. And it would have prepared us to know what we're up against, because for many people, that is trespassing. Trespassing in the White House. You're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to do that. So this is important. You know what? And I didn't plan to do this, but just to get somebody else to chime in. Let me bring up Marcus Garvey. I have Marcus Garvey here on my ebook, and I can bring it up real fast. Technology is dope. I rock with my Kindle books. I mean, I love my print books, don't get me wrong. But let's see here. Let me get Marcus Garvey here. The opinions and philosophy and opinions of Marcus Garvey. And here we go. The philosophy and opinions of Marcus Garvey. So let me just open this up right here and go to my notes. Check this out. Check this out here. Now, even though Marcus Garvey was like, listen, we need to bounce. I mean, before he felt that we should bounce, I mean, he really thought that it could have been possible, but realized, during the height of the Jim Crow days, it was probably impossible. And he felt like we should leave, but he understood one thing, and then I want to read this out. Okay. I think I have it here. He understood the significance of politics for white America, right? By understanding that, first of all, fundamentally, in actuality, the highest seat in a Republican democracy or democratic republic is the citizen, my friends, because the citizen is the free entity that joins into a political community, having the right to participate in government and choose who gets to be in charge or have a certain kind of authority, temporary authority. So really, what's different between a democracy and an aristocracy is that or monarchy is that the citizen chooses. This is important. So now, who gets to be a citizen is the key issue. And this is another argument that I will wage later for why I put the race problem above the economic problem, because the race problem sets the borders around the problem itself, right? So we want to go after the economic problem, but if there's no participation or equal participation as an American citizen because of race, the wall around those who get to participate, then we're getting nowhere. And so I'll talk about that later. So the issue is fundamentally already a race issue. Before we can even make decisions about about economic issues and who gets what. So let me bring up my boy Marcus Garvey. Yeah, no need to introduce him or give you background. You know where he is. So this is about him saying, listen, for me, I'm reading him as explaining why politics is so important in America, and he felt that it was so heavily guarded that we would never get a black president, right? And I can understand that given his circumstances, the day and time he's living in. And so let me get this quote here. He says, let me start here. This is a good place to start. In the chance dozens of black men became senators and congressmen, this opened up to the eyes of the white nation the possibility of the black man governing the white man in these United States of America. The possibility of the black man making laws to govern the white man, question mark. This possibility drove them almost to madness in suddenly rejecting the spirit of the Constitution and the Declaration of Lincoln that, quote, all men are created equal, end quote. Hence, a determination was arrived at that never again would it be possible for the race of slaves to govern the race of masters within these United States. So, in connection, one, going back to the Naturalization Act of 1790, we see that it was inscribed in law by the first Congress of the United States that only white people get to become American citizens. So if you were foreign, or if you're an alien, immigrant, if you're white and you signed off on all that the Declaration of Independence profess, then you get to be down. If you abide by the Constitution and our ways, you get to be down. But you have to be white first. So things have changed a little bit, and some doors have opened up a little bit through a struggle, of course. And by the time we get to the early 20th century and 1900s, where when Garvey is speaking, he realized that after the Civil War and Reconstruction happened, and there was an influx of many black politicians, and this is important. When people realized what happened, they responded, they reacted, and they began to decimate any possibility of racial uplift, and in every way, economically, culturally, socially, politically. This bothered Garvey so much that he wrote, so for us to encourage the idea that one day Negroes will rise to the highest in the administration of this white government is only encouraging a vain hope. See, he saw the backlash, right? The Civil War is won by the North. The North is saying we're going to help, make this place more just. And then we backtrack several steps. All right. Basically, seriously, at this time, slavery really in another name. People like to say, oh, we're in slavery just in another name. Or, we say the new Jim Crow. I get it. But we don't really know what we're talking about in terms of the existential experience that people went through at this time. And in the lynching, when the everyday white person was judged during executioner. Every last one. Not somebody getting away once in a while after a trial. I'm talking about blatant violence. Blatant violence. And there's no chance of justice. No chance. So it was a whole different conversation back then. So, let me fast forward a little bit. This Naturalization Act has set off the culture of politics. The culture of politics, particularly around citizenship, identity, which means being able to participate as a citizen and to enjoy the privileges of American citizenship. This is one of the central issues that MAGA is dealing with. Because if you don't recognize, the civil rights movement was this revolution, a political revolution that engendered a demographic revolution, which we saw manifested in the political realm in 2008 in Barack Obama's election. Now, many people felt that. Now, I always say, when we are lacking so much, when you're so thirsty, a cup of water or a drink might not be enough because you're really thirsty. And so you may drink this whole thing here and you're like, this is not enough. I still need more water. Where some people are saying, wait a minute, you're taking my water, and they want it back, and they're willing to fight tooth and nail for that. And where we're sort of dissatisfied thinking, hey, nothing really happened or changed because we didn't get enough all that we needed. So trying to see these shifts happen based on the initial declaration or the initial posturing of white America in terms of identity, that it is for white people, right? It's excluding all non-white people. Now, MAGA, if you think about Make America Great Again, when you think about the rise of white nationalism, when you think about the push for the wall, when you think about all of the viral videos showing people speak American, take off that Puerto Rican shirt, go back to your country if you don't like it here, or I believe I played a clip here from I think it was CBS of a Ku Klux Klan guy saying that he want black folks to leave, and this is during Obama's presidency around 2012. Like, black folks got to get out of here, or we're going to have another war in this country. So, if we look at what the Republican Party is standing for, it's standing for all of those agendas. The Republican Party is the party of MAGA, which stands for Make America Great Again, which reads Make America White Again. You don't have to take my word for it. Just look at the sentiments expressed by those who champion MAGA. And look at the policies that they are championing. Now, let me just add on one more thing, and I hope y'all follow me on this here. To get a better picture of what the Naturalization Act of 1790 is telling us about MAGA, we have to let's go up to the Hart-Celler Act of 1965, which is the Immigration Act and that was passed by Johnson, that was signed by Johnson. Okay, so let me go to that. Act, the Immigration Nationality Act of 1965, the Hart-Celler Act, which basically, to a certain degree, it pushed back on the discrimination of certain immigrants coming in, because basically it discriminated against America was discriminating against all non-Western or Northwestern Europeans. So basically, if you're Asian or African or a Latino, you were that those countries, anywhere countries from those areas were discriminated against in terms of who gets to come into the United States and become a citizen. And this tried to make the playing field or the criteria a little bit more even, and it did. It did to a certain degree, because it was based more on sort of merit to a certain degree, but it was effective in the way that it allowed more Latinos and who were deserving, and Asians and Africans to participate in what is supposed to be this amazing country ideal of democracy for all human beings. That act, the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965, for many people was a repudiation of the initial Naturalization Act of 1790. And people who hold this view are alive now and see that 1965 act as a huge problem. To the court, all of you, justices here listening to me, let me submit some evidence here. So you're listening to a clip on YouTube of someone who's basically, the title of this video is Results of the 1965 Hart-Celler Immigration Act. And I'm going to play this clip here and also read some of the comments from another clip that's related to this. In fact, let me do it this way to really make this work out for you. I'm going to, let's see here. Let me play one clip just to give you an idea of what this act is all about. So listen up.
Well, this year marks the 50th anniversary of the Hart-Celler Act, which was passed to remove the national origins quotas that had been in place since the 1920s. These national origins quotas had significantly reduced or eliminated altogether immigration from Southern and Eastern Europe, from Asia, and from other parts of the world. The Americas were largely excluded from these quota laws because big business needed labor from somewhere in the world, and so exceptions were made for countries from the Americas so that they would supply the labor that we needed. Hart-Celler, what Hart-Celler did is instead of putting individual limits on immigration from particular countries, it established hemispheric limits. So it created a quota of 170,000 for immigrants coming from the Eastern Hemisphere, and for the first time it imposed a limit on the Western Hemisphere of 120,000. Later on, about a decade later, in the 1970s, those hemispheric limits were abandoned in favor of an overall global ceiling of 290.
Okay, let me stop here. I want to shout out Dominique. Good to see you. Thanks for stopping by. Now, so this is a sort of preview. This is on C-SPAN here. If you want any of these links, let me know. I'll just shoot them to you. And so this is like a little overview of it, and you can do more on your own. All right, and now let's go to see somebody in our time around now response to the Hart-Celler Act, which basically opened up the closed doors that were established since 1790, the Naturalization Act of 1790. Because as basically, let me just say this to make sure, in the 1920s, immigration was sort of opened up more, but it was only for Europeans, certain Europeans, in fact, who were willing to join in to the American white membership. So there was a preference for those who was going to join the white club. And the civil rights movement is not only significant for the black movement, but it was also significant for the immigration movement. Okay? And this act was a part of that impetus of change during the 60s for American identity and who gets to become an American citizen. Now, listen to the response to the Hart-Celler Act. This is a citizen, is not a politician. This is not a professor or researcher. This is somebody who is missing their America. Listen.
This is the Del Amo Mall in Torrance, California. I filmed this a couple weeks ago while I was walking through. I don't live far from this mall, but I wanted you to get an idea of the eclectic demographics that we have here. It doesn't feel like my mall. It doesn't feel like my country when I'm in this mall. These are all nice people. The mall is nice. I don't ever see any real problems there. But it just does not feel like the kind of place that I grew up in, for obvious reasons. I hope that doesn't make me a racist.
So basically, this was a video of a guy filming Latinos, black people, just non-white people. And I mean, this was the politest expression of racism I probably heard. I mean, the dude is trying, all right? He is trying. I guess he's being honest and listen, it's diverse and all of that, but it just doesn't feel like the place I grew up in. It doesn't feel like my home. Now, this is from a nice guy. So when you understand MAGA, when those people who want to say, there are people who are professing MAGA, and they try to distinguish themselves or excuse themselves for voting for Trump by saying, well, I'm not racist. Like, I don't really hate them. It's just like, this is just not my home. This is, it's just something different. It's this diversity. So when I tell you about the impact of Barack Obama's presidency, because it was an expression of diversity at the fullest, that people responded to that. And this is what we're seeing in MAGA. So when MAGA says, make America great again, and first of all, that's just a euphemism of the previous slogan, which was, take our country back. So to embrace guys probably like this one and other Americans who don't want to be viewed as this, aggressive, racist or white nationalist, they have to tone it and say, well, how do we generalize take our country back? Oh, make America great. Like, who can disagree with that? However, we have to be a little clearer. Not just make America great in any direction, make America great again. That's harmless sounding, right? That's harmless sounding. But this is that racism that is embedded in the Republican Party and embedded in MAGA. And historically, I wanted to bring out the Naturalization Act of 1790 so that we can see that this is not new. This should not be surprising. So a lot of folks say, I don't understand why people are like this. Well, you're not really understanding the American history. I mean, let me play devil's advocate. Listen, you have to understand that America was initially intended to be, by the majority of whites, a country for white people. In fact, we had it in our laws. In fact, our first Congress said that if anybody want to get down with our party, they need to be white first. And then we'll check out the other criteria. And let me just add this in for some clarity that there were certain states and many people who weren't down for that. Many white people who weren't down for that. So there were black people, Native Americans, and others who gained citizenship in certain states. Okay, but in terms of a national law and framework, this we can see is the general political culture of for identity expressed. And so this is what I wanted to share with you today. And thanks for sticking with me through this. And this is the kind of context that I want us to have. So at least when I say MAGA is fundamentally racism, and that the Republican Party today is pretty much standing for racism, well, I'm trying to use a historical analysis so you can see that these so-called policies that are using this general euphemistic language are basically Trojan horses that are carrying old visions and dreams of America. So they're trying to get back. They're trying to go back and redo this again. Just get America great again in the way that we understood it. Like the guy said here, it's like this is not really my home. So it was obvious that it was clear that many white people, rich, poor, educated, uneducated, male or female, will vote for Trump. Many people say, oh, I'm surprised the white woman would give Trump the vote. I mean, what about the patriarchy? What about all of his philandering? You know, he's dropping the ball on family values that the Republican Party and conservatives stood for. But he's doing one thing. He's championing the most important priority. And we all do that. We all have priorities in our lives. And we know that certain other things are important, but there could be one thing that is just more important at this point. And we'll deal with what we have to deal with later. And so for many, making America great again is very important right now, because at this rate, if they don't fight as hard as they can, very soon this country will reflect the diversity of its of this demographic revolution that is underway. That's what's happening. So this is where I say to all of you, this is why voting is important. This is why your voice counts. Even though you might not see that right now, but I'm telling you, people don't want you to vote. People want you to feel bad and step out. They don't want that because that makes it a little better to get America great again, to get a little closer to a version of the 1790 Naturalization Act. So don't fall for it. At this point now, there is a new American majority. And it's a progressive one. However, we don't know that we exist. And I always say this, because America doesn't feel like our birthright, many of us are not inclined to fight as hard as we really can. And then if anything doesn't go our way, we just feel like whatever. But as I said before and over, they're fighting for their birthright. They're fighting for the first laws that were passed on their behalf. Right? And I'm sorry to just put it out there like that. You know, you just make it sound like they're all just racist and everything. Well, listen, you heard this guy. He sounded like a guy I could probably talk to if we never talked about politics. And he seemed a little apologetic for how he felt, but that's how racism works as well. That one has certain prejudices or one has a certain nostalgia for a community that excludes other people and they don't know why. It's like, this is not my home. Like, really? Like, this diversity stuff, let's look at this more. Like, I don't know. Like, what's going on? This is a problem. All right? And this is the nice one here. Anyway, I rest my case. I hope you got some political soul food for real here. I want you to stay on task, vote, talk to people, don't get discouraged. Together we can do this. Get ready for 2020. We can do this. Beauty Undefined says, well, if it walks like a duck and talks like a duck, it's boop, duck. Amen, sister. You were right about that. That's the truth. And that's where we are. So again, I wanted to elaborate on what's going on today within a historical context, and so that we can see. I mean, I'm sure all of you know this already. I mean, one doesn't need a history book, to like find out what's going on here. But it is good to know for us though, to articulate these things. I think it's very useful because it can remind us that this is a real deal struggle here, and we're dealing with structural racism. The structural racism within the political infrastructure, right? It's in law, in the laws. It's packed in the laws. So when we start pushing for things like Obamacare, or when Obama tries to correct certain forms of institutional racism, when he tried all those things, of course Republicans was like, none of us is voting for anything for you. In fact, we're going to do whatever we can. We're going to cheat. We're going to work with another country to get this country back, and we're going to ram as much stuff possible in, so that way we can slow people down, if not totally just discourage them from being involved in politics. All right, they're doing this because they have a vision. You know how if you miss something, or you miss someone, or you remember something, or if something is your property and somebody takes it, you're going to go all out, and this is what's happening. But guess what? I truly believe that they're going to lose this battle. But it's not going to be without us standing up. It is a little bit of a chess game. We've gained a lot. Think about this. The terms of citizenship in the Naturalization Act of 1790 are gone. There are remnants still around, yes. But ultimately, the germane parts of it are gone. And if anyone, those congressmen who voted for that, the citizens who applauded such an act, were to be brought back to life today, they will probably drop dead immediately. Like, what the? And I'm like, get me out of here. So much has changed on that note. So keep that in mind. This is how far we've come. And so that's why I wanted to give that historical landmark by going to the very first Congress. To the very first Congress. All right? So that we can see what's changing and why people are really, really pissed. Samuel, thank you very much. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. I really appreciate y'all for coming here on Political Soul Food. I go live on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube from Monday to Thursday. And you can catch me on any of those platforms. The videos stay up on YouTube. So if you miss one, if you can't, catch it, you can catch it on IG right after, or just, go over to YouTube. YouTube is the same handle as IG, Kassan Henry. If you want to support, there's ways to support by supporting me on PayPal, which is just my name. You can PayPal me at Kassan Henry, or you can become a patron at patreon.com/Kassan Henry, as it's spelled here. And if in any case, if you go to one of those platforms or not, the best thing you can do for me is to keep, keep the hope alive, keep doing your thing. Try to make this place better for just one person, whether it's swiping a Metro card if you're in New York for somebody who needs something, some encouragement to a young person who is confused about their lives or life period. Any act, any good deed that you can do would be ultimately the number one way to support me, because the more you do for our community, then that's going to come back and on me, because I want to live in a good community. So I want to thank all of you for chiming in. Let's holler at Tanisha for chiming in. It was good to see you. Thanks for chiming in on Political Soul Food. So tomorrow's show, every Thursday on Political Soul Food, I do Black Shoutouts. Black Shoutouts is more or less Black Shoutouts is where I shout out people who are doing amazing things for the African American community, for the Black community, for people of color, for minorities. All right. So they're either Black people who are doing this or people who are actually doing good things for our community. So I do that every Thursday. And I think that's a very important part of our political diet, to acknowledge and celebrate and cultivate those who are doing their best in whichever way. And so please feel free to chime in on that or hand out some suggestions on who I should acknowledge. There are some unlikely people doing some things, doing their best. They may not be doing exactly the way we want them to do it, but there are people who are doing things. And you'll be surprised who they are. It could be rappers whose music you probably want your kids to listen to, but they're coming around and trying to do something. So Samuel, I see your info here. Should I take that? Right, I'm gonna take that down. And so we're gonna call it a night. And a lady for you was good. That's good. It's good to see you here. So yeah, this was a real talk, and I hope that some of this can be useful for you in your arsenals, especially if you're like myself, who end up debating people on certain issues, right? And a lot of people like to say, "Oh, America wasn't racist," but you can find a facsimile of that Naturalization Act of 1790. So just Google that. Yes, absolutely. Beauty Undefined said Jaden Smith. We talked about that. I think we talked about that last week. Absolutely. Nelly's been doing some great things, So yeah. So thanks again, everybody. It's good to see y'all all out here. I'm going to call it a night so y'all can get to bed and do what y'all got to do. But make sure you follow up on some of the things that I say. I like to be fact checked so I can get it right. I want to learn. I do my best to, when I'm giving my opinion, I'm giving my opinion. But when I'm giving, issues and facts and dates, I try to get that right. And, I always encourage you to fact check me. Not only because I want to get it right, because that means you're looking at this stuff too. And it's really good that you're looking at this stuff. Oh, Akon, Beauty Defined. So I think it'll be one of my next guests, Beauty Defined. We talked about that. I look forward to that conversation. All right, everybody. I'm going to check out here. Y'all have a great night. Thanks for tuning in. And keep the fire burning in your own communities, because we have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work to do. All right, good night. RG, peace and love. Facebook, we out.